In the quiet, green suburbs of Winchester Lane, a breeze carried with it the calmness of the American countryside and the promise of a new beginning. Emily Harper stood outside her newly rented cottage, a duffel bag at her feet, her eyes soaking in the orange hues of the evening sun that painted the sky. Her past, now a crumpled page in a closed book, lay hundreds of miles away in Boston, where a 5-year relationship had ended in betrayal. She wasn't running, she was healing. Emily had chosen Winchester Lane for its peace. Tall trees lined the streets, neighbors smiled politely but minded their own business, and birdsong filled the silence that followed her footsteps every morning. She was a schoolteacher by profession, with a gentle voice and eyes that had once held dreams. Here, in this new town, she hoped to reclaim them. Just 3 houses down the lane was an old Victorian mansion, painted in soft beige, with ivy crawling up its front walls. It looked like a forgotten photograph. Beautiful but distant. That house belonged to Ryan Moore, a man who was rarely seen, mostly during grocery runs or late-night jogs. He was tall, with dark hair and a kind of stillness in his presence that made people curious, yet hesitant. Emily first saw him while unloading her groceries. He had walked over, offered help, and smiled with such warmth that it felt like sunlight piercing through overcast clouds. "Welcome to Winchester Lane," he had said, his voice low, steady. "I'm Ryan. I live nearby." There was something reserved about him, something quiet yet magnetic. Over the next few weeks, they ran into each other often. At the farmer's market, outside the coffee shop, in the park. Their conversations grew longer, shifting from polite greetings to personal stories. Ryan had once been a renowned architect, but now worked freelance. He'd lost his wife 4 years ago, he told her, in a vague tone that didn't invite follow-up questions. Emily didn't ask. She understood grief had its own rhythm. Soon, dinners followed. Walks turned into hand-holding. Laughter turned into late-night calls. And with time, Emily found herself falling in love again, gently, without drama, like leaves falling in autumn. Ryan wasn't perfect. He was quiet, guarded, but attentive. He listened. He remembered things, her favorite author, how she liked her tea, the name of her childhood dog. He made her feel seen. Eventually, Ryan invited her into his home. It was even more beautiful inside, warm wooden floors, antique furniture, bookshelves, and old family portraits. There were rooms he didn't show her. She didn't ask why. People carry scars, she thought. She was in no rush to uncover them. But one thing stood out, a narrow staircase behind the kitchen, leading down to a basement. The door was always locked. Once, when Emily tried to open it, Ryan appeared behind her, smiling but firm. "Old place. Too many things stored down there." "Just dusty junk," he'd said. There was a sharpness in his tone that made her step back. He kissed her forehead, and the moment passed. Yet a part of her couldn't forget it. A chill ran through her whenever she passed that door. At night, sometimes, she thought she heard something, a thud, a shuffle, too soft to be clear but too distinct to ignore. She told herself it was the house settling. Old homes made noises. As months passed, their relationship grew deeper. Emily had moved in officially by the fall. Her clothes hung beside his, her books on his shelf, their toothbrushes sharing a cup. But love, no matter how strong, can't mask instinct. Something about Ryan still felt unreadable. He never spoke of his past, never mentioned Liza. His late wife, beyond that one brief statement. There were no pictures of her. No keepsakes. No trace of her ever living in that house. One cold October evening, while Ryan was away on a 2-day business trip in New Jersey, Emily found herself alone in the house. The wind howled outside, rattling windows. She lit a candle, curled up with a blanket, and opened a book. But her eyes kept drifting to that basement door. She tried to focus. Tried to ignore the pull. But something stronger than curiosity, something like fear wrapped in instinct, led her to get up. She remembered the key ring Ryan had once left in his office drawer. She'd seen it while placing a letter in the drawer weeks ago. Her hands trembled as she opened the drawer, took the ring, and walked to the door. It took 5 tries. The 6th key clicked. The smell hit her first, old wood, mold, something metallic. She flicked the light. A dim bulb hung from the ceiling. The steps creaked under her weight. Each footstep felt like trespassing into a memory not meant for her. The basement was larger than she expected. Dust clung to everything. Old trunks, covered furniture, and painting frames leaned against the walls. But one object stood out, a tall, covered glass cabinet in the far corner, illuminated faintly by a second bulb overhead. Emily approached it. She removed the cloth covering the case. Her heart stopped. Inside the glass was the body of a woman. Preserved. Eyes closed. Pale skin. Dressed in a white gown, like a sleeping bride. Her hands were folded over her chest. Her lips slightly parted. Emily stumbled back, almost screaming. Behind her, a table had old photographs, Ryan and the same woman, laughing, kissing, holding hands. Notes written in cursive, Liza, summer 2016. My forever. She said yes. She couldn't move. Her body felt frozen. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Then she heard the door creak open upstairs. Ryan. His voice echoed softly down the stairs. Emily. I forgot my laptop. Silence. Then his footsteps. Slow, deliberate. He appeared at the top of the staircase, his face half in shadow, rain dripping from his coat. You weren't supposed to see that, he said calmly. Emily backed away. What is this? Ryan, what did you do? She was leaving me, he whispered. I loved her. She promised me forever. I couldn't let her go. Emily reached for her phone, but Ryan was already moving. The last thing heard in that house that night was a scream. A long, desperate, soul-tearing scream. Then, silence. Days passed. No one saw Emily. Ryan told her school she had left for a family emergency in Boston. He showed forged messages from her phone. He knew how to erase trails. He had done this before. Months later, Ryan was back to his morning jogs. He had a new smile. A new energy. And soon, a new match, Kate Burns, a journalist from a nearby town. They met online. She found him old-fashioned, sweet, and sincere. He invited her for dinner one weekend. She loved his house. This place has character, she said. Full of memories, Ryan replied, smiling. She asked once about the basement. He chuckled. It's sealed. Full of old junk. Useless now. Kate never saw the small switch hidden behind the kitchen cabinet, one that opened a concealed door behind the bookshelf. Behind that door, down the steps, now stood 2 glass cases. One marked Liza. One marked Emily. Their skin preserved, eyes closed, lips slightly parted. Like sleeping dolls. And on some nights, when the wind howls through Winchester Lane, neighbors report hearing something strange. A faint sound carried through the air. Not quite a scream, but not quite silence either. Something, in between.